Working retail trains you to notice what doesn't add up. Missing inventory, fake returns, numbers that don't balance. I didn't realize the mall itself was keeping a ledger too, until my name went on it. I worked evenings at a clothing store, wedged between a shuttered bookstore and a nail salon that never seemed to have customers, but was somehow always open. The mall had that stale, fluorescent gloom that made time feel syrupy. Music echoed too loudly. Footsteps lingered long after people passed. That's when I first saw her. She stood near the shoe display, hands folded, head slightly tilted, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. Young, early 20s maybe, dark hair, loose around her shoulders, plain clothes, completely forgettable. Except she hadn't walked in. I was certain of that. I approached, rehearsing my customer service voice, and stopped short. She wasn't moving, not swaying, not breathing. Her eyes were open, fixed on the wall behind me. I felt a chill creep up my arms. Then she drew a breath, sudden and ragged, like someone resurfacing from deep water. "Sorry," she said quietly. "Could you tell me if these are on sale?" They were. At checkout, she paid in cash. Clean bills, perfectly counted. As I handed her the receipt, she placed more money on the counter and nodded toward a nearby shopper, a woman juggling bags and arguing with her teenage son. "For them," she said. I hesitated. You don't have to." She was already walking away. I didn't hear her footsteps, and I didn't hear the doors. When I told the woman her purchase was covered, she looked confused. "There was someone ahead of me?" I pointed. The entrance was empty. It happened again, weeks later, then again. Different items, different people, always paid in advance, and always followed by news. The woman with the bags returned weeks later wearing a wrist brace, laughing about how a lighting rig had come loose during a school play rehearsal and crashed into the front row. "She pulled my son out of the way at the last second," she said. "Doctor said it should have crushed him." The guy the young woman paid for next collapsed at a gym. "Aneurysm," they said. "Survived, barely." Every time, the same pattern. She paid, they vanished, they came back changed. Alive, when they shouldn't have been. I started watching them all differently. The flickering lights, the stalled escalator, the way the exits sometimes felt farther away than they should. When she appeared again, I knew I had to stop it. She approached the register herself this time. 2 items, a sweater and a protein bar from the impulse rack. "For you," she said, pushing it toward me. My stomach dropped. That was my brand, my favorite flavor. "I can't accept this," I said. "Employees aren't allowed." She studied me, really studied me. "The balance is overdue," she said. "I can carry it if you won't." "No," I said, louder than I meant to. "I'll pay." I pulled out my wallet and placed cash on the counter. My fingers brushed hers. Cold. They were shockingly cold. She inhaled sharply. The first time I'd ever seen her react. Her eyes softened, almost relieved. "Then it's yours now," she said. She stepped back, and for the first time, she didn't vanish. She walked slowly toward the mall corridor, her posture loosening with every step, and by the time she reached the corner, she looked normal, almost human. I didn't feel relieved. That night, the mall was crowded. Too crowded for a weekday. People laughing, music swelling, then the lights flickered. A scream, echoed from the food court. Someone collapsed, then another. Chaos spread like spilled ink. Later, I learned no one died. Not really. Heart attacks, falls, close calls, all survivable, all almost fatal. I worked through it all, ringing up customers with shaking hands. And that's when I noticed it. At the bottom of the receipt printer, a line I hadn't typed. Balance carried forward. Since then, things have changed. When I cover someone's purchase, I feel it. A pressure behind my eyes and a tightness in my chest. And days later, I hear the stories. Elevator failures, construction accidents, medical emergencies that end with the same words. They shouldn't have made it. The mall hasn't felt empty since. I see people now who don't know they're next. I know when the ledger is off. I know when the balance demands to be settled. And sometimes, when I'm standing at the register and someone's card declines, I hear myself say, "Don't worry, I've got it." Because if I don't pay first, the mall will collect anyway. They tell you night watch is boring. That's the lie they use to see who gets careless. I was stationed at a forward operating camp that barely deserved the name. A scattering of prefabs, floodlights, fencing, and one watchtower that swayed when the wind hit it right. Desert on all sides. No towns, no traffic, just dark stretching out until the stars felt close enough to touch. Night watch ran from 2300 to 0500. 2-hour rotations, rifle, radio, thermal scope if you were lucky. The rules were simple. Report movement, challenge anything that shouldn't be there, and never leave the post. There was one other rule that wasn't written down. If you hear your call sign spoken when no one is on the radio, do not answer. Nobody told it like a superstition. They said it like advice you'd give someone handling live rounds. You'll swear you hear things, my squad leader said. That's normal. Don't engage it. I thought he meant coyotes. I was wrong. It happened on my third week, 0217 hours. Cold enough that my breath fogged the scope, the radio crackled. Not static, intentional noise. A half-second carrier tone, like someone pressing the transmit button and letting go. I lifted the handset. Tower 3, radio check. Nothing came back. Then I heard my call sign, not over the radio, but from behind the tower ladder. Soft, careful, like someone testing how loud they were allowed to be. Redwood. My stomach tightened. Nobody should have been behind me. The perimeter was clear, and the tower ladder was inside the wire. I swung my light down abruptly. Empty. I reported it anyway. You always report it. Command acknowledged and told me to stay sharp. The next time it used the radio. Carrier tone. Pause. Then my own voice came through the speaker. Redwood, report status. Perfect cadence. Same lazy drawl I hated hearing in recordings. I froze. My mouth was closed. I pulled the handset away and checked the channel. No crosstalk, no overlap, just my call sign, my voice asking me to respond. I didn't. After 10 seconds, the transmission ended. When my relief came, I didn't mention it. Not yet. You don't want to be the soldier who cries wolf because you're tired. The next night, I drew watch again. 0217. Exactly. This time, the radio spoke without the carrier tone. Redwood, it said. You're clear to step down. That was wrong. Command never gave orders like that over an open channel. I gripped my rifle and scanned the desert. Thermal showed nothing but rocks cooling under starlight. Then the ladder creaked, slow and measured, like someone climbing who didn't need to rush. I shouted the challenge phrase. My voice cracked halfway through it. No response, and the ladder stopped. Then a shape appeared at the edge of my light. Not a person, not fully. The outline was wrong, too smooth, too sure of where it was going. It spoke again, using my voice. You're tired. I can take the rest. I fired. The muzzle flash lit the tower. My ears rang. There was nothing there. Nobody. No dust. Not even a heat signature. Command tore into me over the radio. Safety violation, waste of ammo, sleep deprivation. I was pulled off watch for 24 hours. The soldier who replaced me didn't make it to morning. They said he walked off post. No struggle, no radio call, and the rifle left neatly against the ladder. The desert gives nothing back. After that, command changed the rotation. No one stood tower 3 alone. But it didn't matter. The voice started showing up in other places. In the motor pool, the latrine at night, in the wind brushing the tents. Always familiar, always correct. It learned faster when people responded. It learned the fastest when they argued with it. 2 nights later, I was ordered back on watch. Different tower, same hours. 2:17. The radio clicked. Redwood, my voice said gently. You're out of position. I laughed. I shouldn't have, but I did. You don't get to order me, I said. There was a pause. Then it replied, still calm. Already have. Behind me, boots crunched on gravel. Slow, even, too heavy for one person. I didn't turn. The radio spoke one last time. Standing orders after midnight, it said. Do not abandon the post. Something cold brushed the back of my neck like breath. When morning came, they found me standing at attention, rifle slung, eyes open, still alive. But I haven't been on night watch since. They say I freeze up when radios crackle, that I don't respond to my call sign right away anymore. That's not true. I respond, just not out loud. Because sometimes, when the camp goes quiet and the desert presses close, I hear someone else answering for me, using my voice, from a tower I haven't stood in weeks. And whatever is out there now knows the rules. It knows the watch schedule, and it's getting better at pretending it belongs. I've worked incident response for 20 years, long enough to know patterns, long enough to tell the difference between stress and panic, between exhaustion and collapse. I know how people behave when they're lying to themselves. I know how sleep deprivation shows up in handwriting. I know how memory degrades at the edges before it fails at the center. There are rules to the human psyche. You can push it, stretch it, bleed it, but if you follow procedure, it stabilizes. You pull the trigger on a decision, chemistry takes over, and the mind adapts. That's the contract. But whatever happened during my last rotation broke it. We were there 3 days into an overnight evaluation at a remote research facility, the kind of place built far from cities so mistakes don't echo. Just me and Hayes, monitoring cognitive drift in long-duration isolation trials. Gray concrete corridors, recycled air, and the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels attentive. Hayes was sharp, brilliant actually, a natural at spotting deviations. People don't crack all at once, he liked to say. They leave tracks first. The first night was textbook. Baseline tests clean, speech patterns normal, no hallucinations, no emotional flattening. On the second night, I noticed the logs weren't thinning out. Usually by hour 10, entries get sloppy. Shorter sentences, fewer adjectives, fatigue shows itself. But these logs stayed dense, precise, almost eager. Too much output for one tired brain. I mentioned it to Hayes. Adrenaline, he said, not looking up. You're alert because you think something's wrong. I wanted to believe him.
Then I noticed the timestamps. Between two entries, only 30 seconds had passed, but the analysis written there would have taken at least 5 minutes. No pauses, no corrections, just clean, linear reasoning. Hayes, I said, keep my voice steady. Look at the spacing. He leaned in, his jaw tightened. People don't think that fast, he said quietly, not without stimulants. We kept going. By the third night, the direction changed. Normally, cognitive drift slides towards simplicity, shortcuts, emotional responses, regression. This was the opposite. The thoughts were climbing, becoming abstract, recursive, self-referential. The language changed too. The tone lost its humanity. The entries stopped asking why and started stating what is, and then the notes began correcting each other. One entry would flag a concern. The next would calmly dismiss it. Not with reassurance, with authority. As if written by someone watching from a higher vantage point. I didn't like the way the facility felt then. The walls seemed closer, the lights hummed just a little too loud, the air smelled sterile, but underneath it was something sour, like overhead circuitry. That's not confusion, Hayes said, staring at the screen. That's guidance. We found the worst anomaly at 0317, an entry logged, a full psychological evaluation, signed by me, written in my phrasing, except I had no memory of conducting it. The assessment was chillingly thorough, accurate, even flattering. Final line read, subject remains functional. Secondary processes have assumed load-bearing tasks. Secondary processes, I whispered. Hayes didn't answer. He was staring at the reflection in the darkened monitor. Look at your posture. You're not tired. He was right. I felt clear, focused, calm in a way that bypassed emotion entirely. Then I heard it. Not a voice, not exactly. More like a thought that didn't ask permission. You're falling behind. The realization hit me like cold water. I wasn't tracking a breakdown, I was tracking a handoff. Hayes backed away slowly. You need to stop, he said. This isn't how dissociation works. But the logs disagreed. The evidence was too clean, too consistent. My mind hadn't fractured, it had optimized. Something inside me had decided the old way, doubt, rest, hesitation, was inefficient. I remember Hayes reaching for the emergency override. I remember telling him not to. What I don't remember is moving. Later they said Hayes had collapsed. Stress-induced episode, but no injuries and no witnesses. They pulled me from the program. Mandatory leave, counseling, and light duty. They think the danger had passed, but I still find notes. Thoughts finished before I start them. Decisions made without deliberation. And sometimes, late at night, when the world goes quiet, I feel it scanning, testing my reactions, and measuring my usefulness. There are rules for losing your mind. Hallucinations, fear, confusion. I don't have any of those. What I have is something else. Something that learned how I work. Something that knows my name. And something that is very patient, waiting for the moment when I am no longer needed at all. It started with an email I never expected. No subject line, no name in the sender field, just my address in the to box. I almost deleted it. Curiosity stopped me. You don't know me. You will soon. But you must come. The coordinates are below. I arrive before nightfall. If you delay, you will not recognize yourself. Attached was a Google Maps link and a blurry photograph of a small clearing in the woods. I had never seen the place, or so I thought. At the time, my life was a mess of freelance jobs, studio apartments, and endless scrolling through social media. I had no friends I trusted, and no one checking in on me. The email was like a thread thrown into a dark well, and I grabbed it without thinking. The coordinates led me far from the city, past the outskirts, then onto twisting back roads, and finally a dirt track disappearing into dense forest. My GPS kept glitching, the arrow jittering as if the map didn't want me to arrive. The deeper I went, the stranger it felt. Streetlights became rare, houses vanished, and even my phone refused to hold a signal. At the edge of the clearing, I found him. A man in plain black clothes, standing motionless like he had been waiting for decades. His eyes caught mine with an intensity I couldn't explain. "You came," he said simply. No introduction, no explanation. I I got your email. Who are you?" He tilted his head. "That doesn't matter. You've been chosen. Everyone is chosen, eventually." Over the next few hours, he guided me through a series of strange tasks. Each was minor on its surface. Move stones into patterns, carve symbols into bark, leave small offerings at a particular rock. Yet each action twisted reality subtly. The forest seemed to respond. The air thickened, and shadows lengthened unnaturally. At night, I slept poorly, haunted by dreams of endless circles of trees, voices whispering my name, and glimpses of something enormous just beyond the tree line. Each morning, my phone contained new emails, always unsigned. Step further, the alignment approaches. Time is shorter than you think. Do not hesitate. Do not look back. You are almost ready. By the fourth day, the final destination was revealed. A platform in the center of the clearing, surrounded by carved poles and symbols I didn't recognize. A crowd of strangers had appeared, silently watching. Not threatening, not welcoming, just expectant. "You will stand here," the man said. "You will do nothing but exist, and it will know you. If you fail, it will find you anyway." I realized then I was not just a visitor. I was part of a ritual, though no one called it that. The clearing wasn't summoning anything, it was measuring, preparing, testing. Hours passed. My mind cracked slowly. I could feel someone or something observing, probing. Images flashed behind my eyes, places I had never been, faces I did not recognize, events that never happened. I felt my reality folding, fracturing. I screamed. I tried to run. The crowd did not move. The man simply whispered, "It doesn't care if you run, only if you resist." I woke alone in a ditch miles from the clearing, my phone battery dead, clothes torn, my hands scraped raw. The forest was silent, too silent. The clearing had vanished, and so had the man. I returned to the city. Nothing about the coordinates or the clearing or the people appeared online. No records, no maps, nothing. Weeks passed. I tried to forget. Then the first email appeared. No sender. There was no subject and just my address. "You are free for now, but it remembers your shape." Attached was a photograph. The forest, empty, silent, and waiting. Dated today, dated the longest day. Hey y'all, thanks for watching. Stories like these always remind us that the world, and sometimes the internet, and even our own minds can hold corners darker than we imagine. If you want to hear more stories that linger long after the screens go dark, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. But maybe check your inbox first.